Is it time? Is it finally time to talk about Sonic Lost World for Nintendo Wii U? Well, it is that time! Maybe you have expectations for how this video is going to go, maybe you don't. But while you ponder that, I figured I should first tell you that this video is brought to you by NordPass, who's giving my audience a real value. To get exclusive access to NordPass's best offer, go to my link, nordpass.com/jreviews, or use the code JReviews at the checkout to get a discount on a 2-year plan plus 4 months free. That's JReviews in all lowercase letters with no S in between the J and the R. NordPass is brought to you by the same team that created NordVPN, whom I've worked with numerous times in the past on the channel. NordPass is a useful tool to have when surfing the internet because they store all your passwords in one place, meaning that you won't go through the time-consuming process of not remembering which password you used to sign into this website or that website since it's all there. You can also use NordPass to generate more secure passwords with more complexity, increasing the safety of your account. You can also use the same account on up to 6 devices, so you don't need to type everything in again every time you get a new device, a process I'm sure we're all quite familiar with by this point in time. To get exclusive access to NordPass's best offer, go to my link, nordpass.com/jreviews, or use the code JReviews at the checkout to get a discount on a 2-year plan plus 4 months free. That's JReviews in all lowercase letters with no S in between the J and the R. And with that said, let's get on with the show. So, it has been almost an entire year since my review of the console version of Sonic Generations. Last year we got through 5 years worth of Sonic games, when so far this year we've only done cleanup on a few of the spin-offs. But I did so with intention, as from now to the end of the year, with a few breaks to do other things, we're going to cover almost the entire last 9 years worth of Sonic stuff and do an extra final project on top of that. So strap in, it's going to be a long ride. To bring people up to speed on where we left off specifically, I'll do a recap. By 2013, Sonic was seemingly in the best spot he had been in almost a decade. Sonic Colors brought so much goodwill back to the Sonic name when it dropped in 2010. After years of hated games, Sonic Team managed to bring out a title that people of all ages enjoyed. It made new fans and pleased old ones. Simply because they took what people liked in Sonic Unleashed from 2008 and gave the people more of that and took out the stuff that got criticized. Typically, the Sonic model is to toss everything out when they get criticism, so Sonic Colors was truly something unique. 1 year later, the Sonic franchise celebrated its 20th anniversary with Sonic Generations on PS3 and 360, a massive love letter to the history of the IP with stages and bosses brought back from all the major games with a plethora of references the die-hard fans would get. What tied Sonic Generations together was how it, again, evolved the boosting gameplay from Unleashed and Colors, making it the best it had ever been, combined with a fun and mostly faithful recreation of the classic Genesis Sonic gameplay. Colors brought goodwill back to the series in the eyes of the audience, and Generations cemented it. Sonic Team and Sega were now dedicated to making great Sonic games, not rushing unfinished messes out to the market like they had done so many times in the 2000s. In 2012, we didn't really get a major Sonic game, we just had the spin-off Sonic 4 Episode 2, which did improve upon its predecessor despite not really lighting the world on fire, but it was another release that showed the series wanted to improve. We also got Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, but, right hand to God, I've actually never played this game. People seem to like it more than its predecessor that I had played, but I just never got to play the second one. Late 2012 did mark one noteworthy thing, though. Nintendo kicked off the 8th generation of video game consoles with the release of the Wii U, the sequel to their juggernaut, the Wii. Naturally, the Wii U was going to get some exclusive Sonic content like the previous Nintendo consoles did. However, this was a pretty instrumental move in the history of Sonic, the effects of which I think are better saved for the next Wii U Sonic game. For now, I'll focus on what we ended up getting in 2013. Sonic Lost World, which was announced early in the year and launched in October on Wii U, developed by Sonic Team with a 3DS version developed by Dimps. Like Unleashed, Colors, and Generations, the Dimps version is a completely different game, and I'll focus on it in another video like I did for those games I just mentioned. Today, we're only talking about the Wii U version. One that, when announced, raised the collective eyebrows of the entire Sonic fanbase. I made sure to emphasize that Sonic Colors and Sonic Generations had set up such a good precedent for the series that people were excited for the next one. Generations was heavily sold on nostalgia, and one of the things I remember hearing in the fanbase at the time was, okay, you have almost perfected the boost gameplay. Now we want a game that's fully 3D and is taking the fantastic level design of Generations and applying it to a game that is entirely original. But Lost World came in from out of left field, tossing out the boost gameplay completely and going in a new direction focused on parkour maneuvers and tubular level design. From what I remember of the pre-release for this game, nobody could make heads or tails of it. We couldn't really tell how it played, how it felt to control, and what kind of game it was going to be, since Sonic Team was entirely intent on starting from scratch with this one. What we could tell was that the game seemed kinda reminiscent of Super Mario Galaxy on the Nintendo Wii with these floating platforms and camera angles. While maybe not everyone felt this way, I do remember a lot of folks willing to give the game a chance because again, Sonic Team just produced 2 absolute banger games, and while maybe this wasn't what people wanted, it could be good. Especially given that it was developed in 2 years this time. I myself got my hands on a Wii U in 2013, and one of the main things I wanted to play on it was obviously Sonic Lost World, among a couple of other games I wanted to try out. But this was definitely the top of the list, as this was a series I was almost always super into. And especially now, thanks to Colors and Generations being so good, this coming after internet critics made me realize the games I grew up with were actually not that good. So yeah, needless to say, I was excited to sit down and finally play Sonic Lost World. And I thought it was terrible. Sonic Lost World was an interesting first in that I didn't think a new Sonic game was fun to play, and before this point I played and enjoyed almost all of them. I even played Sega Superstars Tennis a lot when it came out, for Pete's sake. I found Lost World frustrating, a radical departure from Generations that didn't have enough good qualities to make up for it. I got game over after game over, and like I said, just found the new Sonic game to be dreadful. This was the fall of 2013, but I played it again a few months later, spring 2014-ish. This time around, knowing what to expect, I felt that Sonic Lost World was fine enough. This was after the game got patched on Wii U to grant you an extra life after 100 rings, a bizarre omission on the original version of the game, so that alone made it easier to play through. But by and large, I just didn't think the game was anything to write home about. Every time I tried to play Lost World again after this, which is not that many times, I just dropped it a few levels in because I never thought this game was fun or interesting, so I just get bored of it really easily. This video will be my first time playing Sonic Lost World from start to finish in over 8 years. Going into it, I had no idea what to expect. I'm always open to changing my mind on games, especially things I haven't tried out in a long time. I've come back to things I always liked and thought less of them, and vice versa. As many watching this probably know, I was a pretty large contributor to the current 2010 Sonic bashing discourse, but the truth of the matter is that I think Colors and Generations are some of the best games in the series. Although to be fair to me, I never said anything contrary regarding Generations, but the point is, if Lost World turned out to be some banger video game, I'd be here saying so. However, after playing it again, yeah, Sonic Lost World is exactly how I felt it was following my second playthrough. It's a mediocre game that doesn't do anything super offensive, but it's also not a fun game, so therefore I don't have much good to say about it. That's the TLDR version, but let's dive into what exactly makes Sonic Lost World a game I'm pretty unenthused with. At this point, I've alluded to the fact that Sonic Lost World was a massive departure from the previous games, so the big question is, how so? In pre-release, we were told that Sega was taking audience feedback, in that apparently people were having issues with Boost Sonic running into walls, so they decided to take that to heart and design a style with that in mind, creating parkour gameplay where Sonic will run up walls and run along them instead of coming to a stop. I think this had more to do with the IGN and Game Informer takes in the Boost games than it did the fanbase, but still. In theory, I think this is a cool idea. Sonic doing parkour mid-gameplay is a great way to bring his character to life while you play, since you'd be capable of doing the kinds of acrobatics you only watch in cutscenes prior to this. So I don't mind the addition. In fact, I think it could be integrated into the previous 3D Sonic gameplay styles pretty easily. However, they fundamentally went wrong with overhauling how 3D Sonic operates in this game. Like I said, before this point there were 2 main methods of doing 3D Sonic, the more basic adventure style, which ran from 1998 to 2006, and then the Boost games. 2 years ago, in my video on Sonic Adventure 1, I had said that all 3 of these styles had their pros and cons, which I'd go over in the various videos. As someone who's very familiar with each of these styles, seeing the merits and drawbacks that can come from each, but unfortunately, in the case of Lost World, that check's going to bounce because I had assumed back then that I'd see some appeal in Lost World's gameplay upon replaying it like I did the others when I eventually got to it. However, I just don't. I think this is the least appealing 3D Sonic gameplay style, where anything I believe it does well was done better in the previous games, and that begins with the controls. Gaining speed is not a gameplay element in Lost World like it has been since Sonic 1. In this one, Sonic runs at a set speed for the entire game. Moving the stick sees Sonic start a light jog, but by holding down one of the trigger buttons, Sonic will instantly go into his top running speed and continue at that speed until you let go of the button. To go even faster, you hold down the spin dash button and release. Giving Sonic a run button is just antithetical to the appeal of the series. I mentioned Sonic 1 because that game was so impressive and that Sonic had a real physics system for gaining speed that Sonic 2 improved upon. Using Sonic's speed to reach higher areas was such an appealing part of playing the classic and adventure games. Lost World just makes the top speed, which isn't even that fast, a press of a button. So now you'll see Sonic slowly run up and down inclines at the exact same speed like he did in Sonic 06. Not to say it feels as bad to play as 06, I'm just saying that's the nearest comparison I've got. Now, you could say that the boost style was also about pressing one button to reach top speed, and while that is true, what makes it work was that the boosting made you go at warp speed, so the challenge of the game is reacting to the obstacles as they come up and making split-second decisions about which pathway you're going to go on. When you really nail the style, it becomes really satisfying to play. Lost World made concessions as well, but not ones that aided the game in any way. So Sonic has limited controls. Let's design levels where you either run on the outside of a tube or on the inside. That way you can easily adjust to the fact that Sonic doesn't naturally build speed. You aren't on any inclines, it's mostly flat but circular ground. This really flat level design was a requirement to make these controls work, because when not on a tube, like you are in certain segments of the game, you feel how stiff Sonic's controls are in this game. Turning is super sensitive when trying to change directions, and if you're trying to be precise in your turns at high speeds on smaller platforms, you might fall to your doom. Like seriously, what was that? The way I see it, the level design being mostly tubular was just an attempt to accommodate awkward controls rather than bring out the best of them. This is the part I don't get. Parkour is a fine addition to Sonic, but I just don't know why it had to be attached to this bizarre control scheme with a run button and the awkward turning that required spherical levels. It just doesn't make sense to me why this game was designed like that. Parkour itself feels really underutilized throughout. You'll see a wall with rings on it, you approach it with speed, you run on it, and when losing ground you spin dash to keep it going and switch between walls to further keep the momentum up. But rarely does this game ever require you to use this ability in any interesting way. Usually there's a pathway that allows you to dodge it completely or just damage boost through. I never actually knew how you were supposed to cling on to vines and grates in this game before actively looking it up for this playthrough, because you can usually just damage boost or run right through these segments. And the same goes for the parkour and the mundane, predictable applications they reuse again and again throughout the game. It's also pretty jank in regards to what walls you can climb and which ones are going to give you hell for trying, which makes it even less approachable as a mechanic. With all that said, I feel like Lost World could have been fun with a simple change. Sonic has 3 speeds in this game: walking, running, and spin dashing. The spin dash is definitely a highlight of Lost World as it goes really fast, but if you jump while holding the button down, you'll continue your spin dash indefinitely. This is really satisfying to keep going. Where it loses points for me is 1. The double jump cancels the infinite spin dash when you need that extra airtime in order to clear gaps like a pro while spin dashing. If you could keep the infinite spin dash going while double jumping, I think the levels of Lost World would immediately become more satisfying. But then my other problem is the lack of momentum. Take this example here. What I thought you could do would be spin dash jumping off this ramp and onto this ledge for that red ring like you could in almost any other Sonic game, but no, you can't get vertical height off of spin dash jumping in this game. What you had to do instead was time your homing attack for the enemy that came out of the water. I just think that's so lame when the alternative was so much better. Lost World doesn't have the flow that a good Sonic game should, something that especially comes up in this game's combat. You still homing attack enemies, but now there are 3 new gimmicks. Some enemies can't be damaged with the regular homing attacks, so you have to press triangle to kick them, which is a really slow process that halts the pace to a crawl, as does your ability to homing attack multiple enemies at once, something you have to wait to build up, but that's infinitely faster than actually homing attacking the enemies one by one like you used to in previous games. Then you can also wait for your attack to charge up and do more damage, utterly destroying boss fights. But again, it kills the pace of the game when you're forced to stop and kill enemies. Fundamentally, I just think the parkour gameplay is the least appealing 3D Sonic playstyle. It still has the same conventions that others used, like the homing attack or the double jump returning from colors, but that's the thing. Every remotely good thing I felt playing this game was from or better in another game or just desperately needed improvement. Everything else, I just don't like. I think Sonic handles poorly, the level design is limited in its struggle to work with the controls, and the central gimmick feels barely used. Speaking of barely used gimmicks, one of the many ways that Lost World started to lose me as a fan was through its usage of Wisp powers. You remember the Wisps, right? These were cute alien creatures that Sonic rescued in Sonic Colors. These served as power-ups throughout the game that you used to navigate through levels or find hidden areas. It gave Sonic Colors a unique identity while also not crowding the game with a big gimmick that takes up a lot of playtime like Unleashed did. The Wisps are back in Lost World, and this causes several problems for me. First, they're no fun to use in this game. I don't think all the Wisps were home runs in Colors, since the Cube Wisp was kinda lame and the Rocket Wisp was a bit one note, but still I thought the majority of them were fun to use. Here they contribute very little to the actual game. Take the Laser Wisp, for example. You shoot forward, but in every instance where this is available you can just run through fine or take the alternative path that leads the same direction just the same. Nothing clever about it. Point, aim, move 5 feet automatically, and that's all she wrote. The Drill Wisp is almost the exact same as it was in Colors, but now it's more scripted with less of that exploration you had in Tropical Resort and Sweet Mountain from Colors. The Rocket Wisp is a bit improved, with actual aiming being involved, but you barely use it. The Hover Wisp is literally introduced in the last level of the game that you just use to light dash over the parkour segments. This is just so haphazardly introduced into the game, it feels like a total afterthought. The most useful wisps are the new ones. The Rhythm Wisp, which allows you to press buttons to clear gaps while looking like a music note. The Eagle Wisp allows you to fly over gameplay you'd have to run through otherwise, and the Asteroid Wisp eats geometry like the Void Wisp did in Colors DS. But the new ones don't really get the space to shine or evolve in difficulty because they share space with these older ones that also add nothing to the game. And they also introduced the Bomb Wisp, and this one is so useless that they didn't even design segments for it to be used. They flat out admit defeat and make you use it as an item you pull out whenever you want. Even then, still not very useful besides blowing up one hole in the ground in Windy Hill Zone 3. The Wisps not being fun is bad enough. Them adding to the levels that didn't need them was also bad enough, but then the game gives them no reason to exist within the world. The story revolves around animals being trapped and turned into robots like the Genesis games, and at no point is Eggman capturing Wisps ever brought up. It's purely a gameplay mechanic, but the problem is that Sonic Colors made Eggman capturing Wisps for their energy the entire plot of the game. Sonic set the Wisps free and destroyed the machine that Eggman used to harness their power. The explosion destroyed the station holding the Interstellar Amusement Park together, and the planets were set free, and we were clearly told that the Wisps were going home to never return. Sonic Colors was a pretty basic story, so going against continuity like that was pretty obvious to me when I was 12 going on 13. This would be like if SA1 had said that the Chao were all wiped out by the Echidna Raid and the Master Emerald, but then the Chao Garden still inexplicably existed in the games anyway. When SA1 actually says that the Chao stayed alive and thrived for generations past that point, contextualizing why they're still around for you to raise in the gameplay. This is not deep stuff, it's the most basic world building you could do, and Lost World felt like reusing something that Colors had just to do it was more important than building a coherent series. But the reasons I don't like playing this game just keep on going. The game is overloaded with automation in its main stages. This is something 3D Sonic has had since Adventure. Automated bits have been getting criticized by the community for quite some time. Taking control away from the players and showing them something just isn't impressive anymore. Generations understood that, really keeping the fixed, scripted sequences to a minimum, instead putting you in the action. Like how the gun truck in City Escape is a thing you actually have to dodge and avoid, not just hold forward to outrun. Or how they turned this mess of a super speed section from the original Sonic 06 into something more fun where you had to avoid incoming obstacles from the tornado in front of you, instead of having to dodge them from a tornado coming behind you that you can't even see. Maybe it's not fair to compare Lost World to Generations, but man, that game was just so good, and now... Yeah, let's just get on a spring and see Sonic fly from point to point before landing on the ground. That's really exciting stuff. Or get on a dash pad and watch Sonic go. I don't know how else to say it, I just think Lost World is lame as hell. Fully completing it, unlike Colors, did not do the game any favors either. 5 red rings are located in every stage, and for the most part I thought collecting them was fine. If you explore all the pathways of the main stages, you're bound to find most of them, but then, I just didn't find collecting them satisfying as a result, unlike Colors where it was more about using the wisps to reach hidden areas to explore more. Here it's a lot of run up a wall to find a thing, die quickly, and have to collect it again because checkpoints reset red ring progress. And just like Colors, you need to finish the stages you already beat in order to collect red rings you may have missed before to count. So for Zone 2 and 4 of each world, you have to refight these lame boss battles and watch their intro cutscenes again and again. The reward for getting them all is Supersonic like Colors, and for the 10th time in this video, I just don't think Supersonic is very fun in this. He gets this limited boost that you spam over and over, but in these levels, I'd rather just not play, I guess. I got all the red rings, I don't want to play anymore. Also, he has 2 mouths, that's funny. But in the main stages, as I said, collecting these red rings added no appeal to the game, it just bored me. I was kind of surprised by that given the infamous reputation that Lost World red rings have for being frustrating, but I'm guessing that was a result of those statements being made before the patch came out. If I had a limited amount of lives to worry about with these stages, I'd have gone mad getting game overs having to collect them all again. But in a world where you get 99 lives in Lost World pretty quick, it was the gimmick levels where it became a real headache. Despite this game having one playable character and only one gameplay style for that character, I think this might be one of the most gimmicky Sonic games in the level-to-level action, changing the gameplay entirely for just 1 or 2 stages throughout the game. Like when you suddenly are controlling Sonic inside of a snowball with completely different physics and handling as you creep around these tiny levitating platforms. Or that time where suddenly you're Sonic, free-falling in the air as you go up and down, which is manageable enough, but gets obnoxious when you spend half the stage dodging missiles, then the boss fight requires you to make contact with these red missiles to fire them back at the thing. It was really poorly telegraphed that this is what you were meant to do here. And then you have these mock speed sections. Well, at least I enjoyed these as quick bursts of reaction-based gameplay. Much better than how terribly executed the concept was in Sonic 06. But more importantly, the various gimmick levels are the ones where collecting red rings is at its most obnoxious. Like, you have to slowly inch through these pool tables as a snowball to get all the balls in the holes to get a red ring, but then there's a checkpoint immediately after, meaning you need to restart the level to try again. That's a sentence if I've ever heard one. I also despised this pinball table one where I had to reach the top for a red ring but couldn't get a good view of where I was going, so I kept falling and dying, eventually getting bounced into the wing item, which takes you to the next checkpoint if you die too many times in a row, meaning I had to start the level again to get that red ring. Generally speaking, Lost World is a very slow-paced game that I just don't enjoy playing. Like the part where you need to slowly wait for giant fruit to catch up to you so you can lead it into a blender to blast you to the next area. Or how in its 2D levels that definitely needed to exist, you have to slowly run forward and fight enemies, not taking advantage of the opportunities presented by the level design for good momentum-based tricks and jumps, since that's just not in the game. Lost World also tries making it last that ever so bit longer by locking the last level of every zone behind a required amount of animals rescued from defeated enemies. If you don't see this coming, then you just have to go back into previous levels and farm for more animals. This isn't trying to be exploration like the red rings, it's just fighting extra enemies. In the completely random, not soon to be relevant example of Super Mario 3D World, you have to collect green stars to play the level at the end of the world, just like Lost World does. But this encourages you to actually engage with 3D World, exploring levels and using power-ups. This is just filler. For the longest time, this is actually why I said that the Wii U version remains the technical best way to play Lost World. For this review, I played the game on PC, a port which was released back in 2015. The original version of Lost World had these circus minigames you could play that allowed you to get a large sum of animals for the requirement. But since this could only be controlled with a Wii U gamepad, it was just cut from the PC version. In addition to that, the Wii U version got DLC that was meant to promote upcoming games like Yoshi's Woolly World and Zelda: A Link Between Worlds, which came out on 3DS that year. The Zelda DLC in particular converts the rupees you collected for animals in the game, and so you can do one playthrough of the Zelda DLC and have more than enough animals for the entire game. And do one good run of the Yoshi DLC and then have more than enough lives for the entire game as well. There is also DLC based on Sega's old IP, Knights. Figured I'd mention that because if I didn't, someone would comment saying I forgot about it. For the longest time, PC players missed out on these levels that made the campaign much easier to deal with, but once again, the Sonic modding scene have saved the day by creating a mod that puts the DLC levels into the PC version, allowing you to reap all those benefits. So now, the PC version is truly definitive. Glad they decided to port this game to PC when they did, to at least give the game some preservation as opposed to being trapped on Wii U for all eternity. But enough about that, let's get back to the game properly and talk about the thing I'm sure most fans of mine watching this were very hyped about: the story. To be honest, I really don't have that much to say. From a certain point of view, I'm glad I made that Sonic Stories video back when I did, because 4.5 years later, I just can't work up much enthusiasm when talking about the actual plot of Lost World, and that's because it just doesn't have that much story. Now, I think the plot has more going on than Sonic Colors and Generations, but overall I think the plot is still too dry to have anything to say about. So in this playthrough, cutscenes just slowed the pace down even more, since I'd like to skip them, but I can't because it's a review. Although, because I wasn't skipping the cutscenes, I was quite surprised to see that I was wrong about something that I've always taken issue with in this game's plot. And that's that the Zeddy turn on Eggman and then continue his plan of using the energy-sucking machine. However, if you watch the early cutscenes, Eggman plainly states that he doesn't plan on completely turning the world dry, he just wants to absorb enough energy to power his machines. But even that small amount of energy leaves you supercharged. The Zeddy turn on Eggman and then plan on using the machine to completely destroy the world that Eggman intends on conquering and using all that energy to become uber powerful. Just thought I'd mention that because I'm surprised I was never called on the carpet for not noticing those details. But then again, maybe that criticism wasn't even in the video and was just something I said off the cuff. How am I supposed to remember? Not that that makes the Zeddy, or the Deadly Six as they're also called, interesting characters. I mean, you've heard it all before. They really are just a collection of singular personality traits that they then base all their dialogue around. Some of which aren't even bad lines, but when every joke has the same punchline, Zor is depressed, Zik is old, Zomom is fat, it just becomes predictable. These characters seem like they were created to be boss battles throughout the game, and man, what a waste if that was the point. I mean, it takes 2 hits to kill all of them from start to finish. It's honestly kind of surprising to see, considering how I thought the Boost games were a considerable improvement over the adventure games in terms of boss design, and now we have bosses that can probably be beaten in less time than their intro cutscenes. Upon revisiting this game, it did become clear that I have got to give the story presentation some props, though. These cutscenes are a vast improvement over what was in Colors and Generations. I thought Unleashed was a real step up in regards to cutscene presentation in Sonic, with numerous action scenes throughout the story, in engine and in CGI. Colors was trying to be more of a small-scale story, but my main issue was how the scenes never really showed anything dynamic or interesting, just a lot of standing around. Made even more apparent in Generations, we don't even get a background for most of the cutscenes. In Lost World, you start with a well-animated sky chase between Sonic, Tails, and Eggman that sets up the game, and then with these pre-rendered cutscenes that make up most of the game, you see them doing a lot of things that the last two games never did, like shifting camera angles, action scenes that don't feel rushed, spread throughout, and more expressive facial animation than the prior entries. An A for effort. But on the whole, I still think the writing is weak. The villains are one note, as I said, but then the whole game is based around Tails, out of left field, getting really upset that Sonic wants to work with Eggman. The basic premise being that since the Zeddy took over Eggman's army as a result of Sonic punting the magic conch shell that he used to control the Zeddy away, Sonic thinks he should take it slow and help Eggman get to the machine and shut it down before the Zeddy destroy their world. Tails getting super insecure about this and flinging accusations out about Sonic not trusting him. The heroes have worked with Eggman for a common cause in previous games, like this is not new. Obviously, Eggman tries betraying them at the end and Tails is like, "You realize you never needed Eggman, right?" And Sonic's like, "Yeah, sorry for doubting you," when the story never set that up. The point was that Sonic shouldn't rush into situations without thinking, something I don't think his character has ever had a problem with before, but at least the story wrapping up with Sonic thinking his choices through is logically consistent, unlike with the plot we got. Having said all that, I want to use this as a chance to set the record straight on something seemingly minute. I have mentioned Sonic Dissected, the YouTube series, numerous times in the channel before. They were kind of leading the charge on disliking the storylines in the newer games, including Unleashed and Black Knight when those came out, way back before it was the cool thing to hate on the newer Sonic game plots. I bring it up because the guy who hosts the series, Roger, got to interview Ken Pontac around the release of Sonic Lost World. Pontac having helped co-writer Warren Graff translate the stories of Sonic Colors and Sonic Generations, but Lost World being the first story they wrote themselves. This interview revealed to the audience that Mr. Pontac at least had never played a Sonic game before and had familiarized himself with the series via wikis and YouTube cutscenes. I think Roger regrets how viral this information became, as I'm sure he'll elaborate on in the comments of this video, because this tidbit has caused the amount of hate idiotic fans on social media sent these writers to skyrocket, causing it to seem like Pontac isn't super fond of the Sonic community anymore, but I can't speak for him though. Thing is, if you send harassment to anyone who works on these games, whether that be social media managers, writers, voice actors, directors, what have you, you're a fucking loser and need to get a grip. It's a video game. Now, I'm sure that will fall on deaf ears if you actually do that sort of thing, but I figured I'd say that. That kind of behavior is something that any normal person would condemn, although it's just kind of surprising how normal it is on the internet, so I figured I'd say that, like I said. Writers being super familiar with the things they're working on isn't even a requirement to work on any project. That's not how it works. You get character bibles from the team that give you a guideline on how things are supposed to be, and then the scripts are edited by people who are in the loop. So if anything, I think this fact is just another example of how Sega runs the Sonic operation. I'd be very surprised if the Sonic series ever had a consistent character bible and things of that nature. I'm sure it does exist, and I'm sure they do have script editors who change things to make it more in character, but the games themselves don't make it seem like that, because then you think they could have avoided the kind of cataclysmic writing the Shadow game had, nor the weird stuff you see in Lost World like Tails being super insecure over a situation he's been in before. But of course, we all know that I find Sega and their process of Sonic handling to be one of the worst things about the franchise, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. What I just said pretty much clears up the mystery of the odds and ends of the story, and I also want to get that point about harassing people out of my system. By the halfway point, I was completely tuned out of the story. Combine that with the gameplay I also don't care for, and you have a very dry endgame. I mean, the penultimate world tosses a lot of different gimmicks in the player, such as the skydiving I mentioned, but then the boss with Zavok just hopes that you know you can charge the homing attack up to more levels than you've been able to throughout the entire rest of the game, and this is the only way to win the fight. What an idiot I am for my inability to predict that. Then, the final world is the most bland in the game, as you quickly take out 3 of the Deadly 6 in one stage that takes place on a singular rock, then a grinding stage that ramps the difficulty way up from the one time you saw this style in World 3. It can be satisfying, but is a bizarre difficulty spike, and then the final level is also bland as you run forward using the hover wisp to bypass the only semi-interesting parkour movement in the entire last act of the game. And then you battle a final boss which is clearly going for the same vibe with the Nega Wisp armor that you fought at the end of Sonic Colors. Different aesthetics, but mechanically it's very similar. Auto-running, dodging lasers, homing attacking limbs to reach the core, and then winning after a few tries of that. Then, in the end, the energy is given back to the world, Eggman's defeated, and Sonic takes a nap. What a truly exciting end to a truly exciting journey. Sonic Lost World is one of the most empty-feeling games for me. I've now played it 3 times since it launched 9 years ago, and despite just having played it a few days ago, it feels like it's already starting to fade into the white noise. And this time, I literally collected all the red rings, something I never thought I'd ever do before. There's an entire hidden world with more minigames, but man, I just got Supersonic and decided I had seen enough. No more minigames for me, thanks. But yeah, Sonic Lost World tried something completely different, and I just don't think it worked on a fundamental level, so therefore I find the game completely unenjoyable. It's a bit blunt, I understand, but in the case of this game, I'm just being honest. I don't hate Sonic Lost World as a game in a vacuum, but I have no interest in it, no desire to ever play it again, and frankly, very little respect for it creatively. Despite the fact that Lost World couldn't be further apart from it when looking at them side by side, I think this game is the yang to Shadow the Hedgehog's yin. These are 2 Sonic team developed games that, in my opinion, existed for little reason besides chasing where they thought the money was at. Shadow was trying to steal a more mature audience as a one-time gimmick game, and then they mega embarrassed themselves in the process. But then you have Lost World, a game where it was blatantly told to us before release they were trying to appeal to Mario fans with this being a Wii U exclusive. Sonic Colors had appeal amongst the Nintendo audience, so for Lost World they doubled down on it. This is why Lost World is trying to feel like Super Mario Galaxy. That's why Sonic has a run button like it's Mario, and why visually the game is borrowing so many concepts from the new Super Mario series which sold like gangbusters and every console got an iteration of it. From the generic world archetypes lifted straight from Mario, the need for Koopa Kid-like boss characters, and just straight up moments stolen from Mario, it's clear to me that this was the primary goal of Sonic Lost World, forget everything else. And I have no interest in that vision. I mean, fundamentally, this has got to be the least appealing art design in any Sonic team-made game. The game is built on seeing you travel through a lost world, but that's never really a story or gameplay element. You just run around on floating platforms in the sky. And here, have a stage where it's just floating ice cream and Oreo cookies. Things like that just make me stop and wonder what I'm even playing. The music's nice at least, but the art design in this game is a mess. Sonic Lost World to me is a poor man's Mario game, and I don't even play Mario games much, so I'm not even a fan of the series. I'm just saying Lost World is a cheap imitation. Something that was extra clear when Super Mario 3D World released on Wii U just 1 month after this game and was of course really good and was met with acclaim, compared to this game which obviously came out to mediocre scores. The release of this game was a sight to see. I mean, fans were furious over the low review scores, but I think it was simply the same problem I and many other fans had with it when we got our hands on it. The game was trying something different, it just did not work out, and the game was just difficult to get to grips with, so yeah, it got weaker scores. It was especially depressing since, like I established, Sonic Team and Sega built up a lot of goodwill for the brand in 2010 through 2012, and it seemed like they bet it all on this game. Not knowing what was coming just 1 year later, I can definitely say that I did not know the full weight of that at the time of Lost World's release, but I think that's where we're going to cut it for today's video. More can be said, but I think it's better saved for future videos, as we'll see what did happen to Sonic after Lost World, and I think by the end it'll all make sense. In the meantime, I hope everyone who spent a year looking forward to this felt like they got what they were hoping for. As now, it's been said and done, so we're moving right along to Lost World on 3DS. So until that time, I'll say what I always do. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.